The first time the billionaire's son collapsed at breakfast, everyone thought it was just stress. But the second time, the boy's lips turning blue, his hands shaking violently, the way his eyes desperately searched the dining room, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. And yet, his father, blinded by love, kept comforting the woman standing right beside him, the same woman whose hand was trembling as she held the boy's glass of orange juice. The same woman who whispered, "Maybe he's just weak." But the maid, silent, unnoticed, invisible, had seen what no one else had. She watched the fiancé pour a strange white powder into the boy's drink just moments before the attack. And when the boy gasped for help, the maid realized this wasn't sickness, it was murder in slow motion. And she knew, if she didn't act now, the next collapse might be his last. Before the truth shattered their perfect world, everyone believed the billionaire's mansion was a place of comfort, wealth, and untouchable security. But beneath the polished marble floors and million-dollar smiles, something dark was growing, something that nearly cost an innocent boy his life. And before I take you deeper into this unbelievable story, I want to ask you, the person watching right now, which city are you watching this video from? Drop your city in the comments, New York, Houston, Chicago, anywhere. I love seeing where my audience is tuning in from. And hey, before we dive straight into this shocking tale of betrayal, poison, and a maid's bravery, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories like this. Now let's begin from the exact moment everything changed. It was a quiet, beautiful morning, sunlight spilling across the dining room, the smell of fresh bread filling the mansion, and the billionaire's 10-year-old son, Aiden, already dressed for school. His father, Daniel Hart, a self-made billionaire known for his kindness, sat reading emails on his tablet. Across from him sat his glamorous fiancée, Serena, smiling sweetly, acting gentle, pretending to be the perfect stepmother to be. But what no one knew, was that she had spent the past 3 weeks slipping microdoses of a slow-acting toxin into Aiden's food. Why? Because Aiden stood between her and the billion-dollar inheritance she wasn't willing to wait for. And standing in the corner, unnoticed as always, was Rosa, the maid. But Rosa saw everything. Every detail. Every movement. Every lie. She just never imagined she would soon become the only person standing between life and a deadly secret. The morning Aiden first collapsed didn't look like the beginning of a nightmare. It looked like a movie. The sun was pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows, throwing golden light over the long dining table, the crystal glasses, the plates lined with fresh fruit and fluffy pancakes. Daniel Hart sat at the head of the table in a crisp white shirt, skimming through his emails while sipping black coffee. Aiden, his 10-year-old son, sat to his left, swinging his feet under the chair, his tie slightly crooked, hair still a little messy from sleep. On Daniel's right, in a silk robe the color of champagne, sat Serena. She looked flawless, perfect makeup at 8 in the morning, diamond ring catching the light, her delicate fingers wrapping around a tall glass of orange juice, the same glass she had been subtly hovering over before anyone came downstairs. Rosa had seen that. She'd been cleaning the counter when Serena, thinking no one was paying attention, took a small bottle from her purse, unscrewed the cap, and tapped just a pinch of fine, white powder into the juice. It dissolved almost instantly, vanishing as she swirled the glass casually, humming to herself. When Rosa frowned, Serena glanced over her shoulder, her expression sharp for just a second, like a knife. Then she smiled sweetly. "Good morning, Rosa. Could you make sure the boy's backpack is ready? He has a big test today," Serena said, her voice gentle, warm, almost kind. Almost. Rosa swallowed hard, nodded, and walked away, but her heart had already started beating faster. She had grown up around homemade remedies and medicines back in her village. She knew what crushed pills and powders looked like. She couldn't shake the feeling that what she'd seen wasn't normal. Back at the table, Aiden slid into his seat. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, Serena," he said, grabbing his fork. "Good morning, sweetheart," Serena cooed, pushing the glass of orange juice toward him. "You need your vitamins. You look tired." Aiden hesitated for just a second, but his father wasn't looking. Daniel was still buried in work. So the boy lifted the glass and took a long sip. The liquid hit his stomach like any other day, but within minutes, Rosa noticed something was off. As she wiped the counters nearby, her eyes kept drifting to him. Aiden pushed his plate away halfway through breakfast. He rubbed his temples with small fingers. "Dad, my head hurts," he murmured. Daniel glanced over, concerned. "Buddy, are you okay?" "Maybe you didn't sleep enough," he said, reaching over to feel Aiden's forehead. "No fever." Serena's smile didn't fade. "Kids get tired. He's always on that tablet," she said lightly, using his own parenting guilt against him. But Rosa saw it, the faint annoyance behind the softness in her voice, the way Serena's eyes looked at Aiden, not with love, but with calculation. Aiden tried to brush it off and stood up from his chair. "I'm fine, his sentence cut off. His legs buckled. The glass slipped from his hand and crashed to the floor, juice and shards flying everywhere. Aiden's body convulsed once, violently, as he fell onto the marble. Rosa screamed without meaning to, the sound echoing through the vast kitchen. "Aiden!" Daniel jumped out of his chair, his tablet clattering onto the table. He rushed to his son, cradling the boy's head as Aiden's fingers trembled, his eyes wide open but unfocused. "Call 911. Now!" Daniel shouted. Serena froze for a split second, her face flashing with something like panic, but not the right kind. Then she quickly grabbed her phone and dialed. "We need an ambulance." "He collapsed, he's shaking, we don't know what's wrong," she cried, voice shaking perfectly, like she'd practiced for this scene her whole life. Rosa dropped to her knees beside them, her hands hovering helplessly near Aiden's shoulders. She watched his lips, noticing a faint bluish tinge creeping in. His breathing sounded shallow, uneven, like his lungs were fighting invisible hands. She thought about that powder. That glass. That vitamin Serena insisted he drink. Her stomach twisted. When the paramedics arrived, the mansion transformed into chaos, boots on the marble, radios crackling, voices overlapping. Daniel wouldn't let go of his son's hand as they lifted Aiden onto a stretcher. Serena stood beside him, pressing a shaking hand to her chest, eyes glistening with tears. She looked like the perfect, terrified fiancée. She looked like a woman about to lose the boy she loved. And everyone believed it. Everyone except Rosa. From the corner, clutching the dish towel like a lifeline, she watched Serena's performance. When one of the paramedics asked what happened, Serena jumped in quickly. "He's been so stressed lately, new school, tutoring, he hasn't been eating well," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "He just collapsed out of nowhere." Daniel nodded, desperate to make sense of it. "Yeah, he's been staying up late. I thought it was just anxiety," he murmured, guilt carving lines into his face. No one asked what Aiden had drunk. No one asked who had poured it. No one asked about the powder. At the hospital, they ran tests, took blood, monitored his heart. The doctor came out with a tired face and shrugged slightly. It might be exhaustion. His blood pressure dropped. "Kids today are under a lot of pressure, especially in high-profile families," he said. High-profile families. That was code for, no one wants a scandal. "We'll keep him for observation, but I think he just needs rest and less stress." Daniel exhaled with relief. Serena let out a soft sob and buried her face in Daniel's chest, and he wrapped his arms around her, grateful. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he whispered. Her eyes, hidden from him but not from Rosa, who stood a few feet away holding Aiden's backpack, opened slowly. The corner of her lips lifted, just a hint. It wasn't joy. It was satisfaction. Rosa felt cold all over. That night, back at the mansion, the staff whispered in the kitchen about the scare, about how life could change in 1 second. Rich or poor, health is everything, the chef said, shaking his head. But Rosa stood apart, staring at the dishwasher as plates clinked inside, her mind replaying every detail. Serena alone with the juice. The powder bottle. The way she'd pushed the glass toward Aiden with a gentle insistence. The faint, almost invisible smile much later at the hospital. Rosa couldn't shake it. She opened the trash can, hands shaking, and dug through the top layer of waste, paper towels, eggshells, napkins. Finally, she found it, a small, empty plastic bottle, label torn halfway off. Whatever it contained was gone. Completely gone. Serena had made sure of that. Rosa's heart pounded loudly in her ears. Was she overthinking? Was she imagining things because she'd watched too many crime shows? If she accused Serena and was wrong, she'd lose her job. Maybe worse. Serena had power now, not just over Daniel's emotions, but over the entire household. But then Rosa thought about Aiden, the way his small fingers had clawed at his father's sleeve, the terror in his eyes. She heard his faint voice in her memory, "Dad, it hurts," and something inside her hardened. She couldn't ignore what she'd seen. She couldn't unsee that powder. And as she wiped her hands and closed the trash, one thought burned in her mind: if this was just the beginning, what would happen the next time Serena handed Aiden a drink? Aiden returned home from the hospital the next day, still pale, still weak, but smiling bravely as he walked through the mansion doors holding his dad's hand. Daniel looked exhausted yet relieved, believing the worst was over, completely unaware that the real danger was sitting in the living room, legs crossed elegantly, pretending to read a magazine while watching them enter with eyes that flickered like a predator masking hunger beneath velvet. Serena rushed forward with open arms. "Oh sweetheart, you scared us," she whispered as she knelt, stroking the boy's hair with fingers that had nearly killed him, her nails perfectly manicured and cold as ice. Aiden stiffened subtly, a child's instinct sensing what adults refuse to see, but he stayed silent. The staff gave sympathetic smiles, relieved that the doctors had diagnosed it as stress, but Rosa didn't smile. She stood near the kitchen doorway, her hands trembling slightly as she watched Serena wrap her arms around the boy, the same arms she'd seen pouring poison into his drink. That scene alone made Rosa's stomach twist. She knew something was very, very wrong. Over the next few days, life in the mansion returned to its polished routine. Daniel was consumed with meetings, planning a high-profile charity gala, and handling investments that could shift millions. Serena stepped into the role of supportive partner, bringing him coffee, massaging his shoulders, whispering encouraging words, and planting kisses on his cheek as if she were the perfect fiancée. Anyone looking from the outside would think she was an angel. But Rosa watched closely. She saw how Serena hovered around the kitchen, always offering to prepare Aiden's meals or drinks, insisting, "Let me do it, Rosa, he trusts me more," with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Rosa saw the tiny pills Serena accidentally dropped near the stove and quickly kicked under the cabinet when she thought no one noticed. She saw how Serena lingered near Aiden's bedroom whenever Daniel wasn't home, pretending to check on him, though her expression held no warmth. And she saw Aiden changing, subtle at first. The once energetic boy who loved outdoor games began avoiding food, pushing plates away, saying he felt weird or heavy. He complained of dizziness whenever Serena offered him drinks, but not when Rosa handed him water. His hands seemed to shake slightly some mornings, his eyelids dull, his posture tired. Daniel blamed the recent hospital scare, telling everyone, "He needs a break, that's all." Serena would stroke his arm sweetly, agreeing, "Yes, darling, kids get anxious. I'll take care of him." That phrase, "I'll take care of him," began sounding more like a threat than comfort to Rosa. One rainy afternoon, while Daniel attended a board meeting, Serena decided Aiden needed a special treat. She announced she was making him hot cocoa, just the way he likes it. Rosa froze. She knew that tone. That overly sweet smile. She followed Serena to the kitchen quietly and watched her from behind the pantry door. Serena pulled out the cocoa tin, poured milk into a saucepan, and then, checking over her shoulder, opened a drawer, took out a tiny white envelope, and slipped its contents into the saucepan. Not powder this time, a clear liquid. Rosa's breath hitched. The liquid swirled into the milk, disappearing instantly. Serena stirred it as calmly as if she were adding sugar. Then she poured the cocoa into a mug decorated with Aiden's favorite cartoon character, humming while carrying it toward the living room where Aiden sat watching TV with a blanket over his legs. That was the moment Rosa snapped into action. She stepped out so suddenly Serena nearly bumped into her. "I'll take it to him," Rosa said, her voice polite but firm. Serena's smile froze. "Oh, no, I got it," she replied, gripping the mug tighter. Rosa didn't blink. "You're wearing silk. If you spill hot cocoa, it will stain. Let me." Serena hesitated, her jaw tightening for a microsecond before she slowly handed the mug over. But her eyes, those cold, sharp eyes, cut through Rosa like blades. Rosa carried the mug to the sink, pretending she'd forgotten something, then dumped the entire drink down the drain, the cocoa swirling away, revealing faint oily streaks on the surface, proof that something had been added. She quickly washed the mug. "Sorry, Serena," Rosa said calmly, "the cocoa was too hot. I'll make another one." Serena didn't speak. She just stared. Long unblinking. As if memorizing Rosa's face. Aiden never drank the poisoned cocoa that day, but Serena's gaze made one thing brutally clear: she now knew Rosa suspected something. And the shift happened immediately. Serena's sweetness toward Rosa turned icy. She began criticizing her work harshly, insisting Daniel consider hiring new staff soon. She accidentally spilled juice near Rosa's shoes and blamed her for standing too close. She complained Rosa was intruding too much around the family. She even suggested Aiden didn't like her presence anymore, hoping Daniel would let her go. But Daniel trusted Rosa. She had worked for the Hart family for 8 years, had watched Aiden grow from a toddler. He couldn't imagine the house without her. Serena realized removing Rosa wouldn't be easy. And Rosa realized something far darker: Serena wasn't just poisoning Aiden, she was calculating, strategic, adapting her methods when needed. She was dangerous. The breaking point came one evening when Rosa found Aiden sitting alone in his room, his eyes watery, his hands shaky. "Rosa. I don't feel good," he whispered. She knelt beside him. "Tell me what hurts, mi amor," she said gently. "My stomach, and my head, and," he hesitated. "And Serena keeps getting mad when I don't want to drink the things she gives me." Rosa's heart stopped. "What things?" He pointed toward a small plastic bottle on his nightstand. "Vitamins. She says they're special." Rosa picked up the bottle, unlabeled. A sinking dread filled her. Aiden's eyes filled with fear. "Rosa, do you think she doesn't like me?" In that moment, Rosa knew the truth with absolute clarity: if she didn't expose Serena soon, Aiden would die. And the mansion, with all its wealth and beauty, would become a crime scene soaked in silence. But how do you expose someone who's brilliant at hiding evidence? Someone who controls the billionaire's emotions? Someone who knows exactly how to perform innocence? Rosa didn't have power, but she had something Serena underestimated: courage. And she was about to risk everything. The tension inside the Hart mansion grew heavier by the day, but the outside world had begun whispering too, because nothing stays hidden forever, not even in billionaire neighborhoods where privacy is treated like a god. Word had spread among the staff, the drivers, the gardeners, and even the private security team about Aiden's mysterious collapse and his ongoing symptoms. People talked quietly during lunch breaks and exchanged worried glances whenever Aiden passed by with his pale face and trembling hands. Even the neighbors had begun noticing the pattern: ambulances showing up late at night, Daniel rushing to the hospital, Aiden missing school more frequently, while Serena continued appearing at charity luncheons and dress fittings with her dazzling smile and flawless hair, telling everyone Aiden's health has always been fragile, but I'm doing everything I can. Her lie was beautifully delivered, soft, sweet, and laced with fake concern that fooled everyone except Rosa, who watched the fabric of this perfect facade stretch thinner and thinner. And Rosa knew it would eventually tear. One Saturday morning, Daniel hosted a small brunch with close friends and a few business partners. The estate's garden was decorated with white lilies, crystal vases, and the kind of quiet luxury that made people admire Serena even more for trying so hard to fit into the family. She floated around the guests like a figure carved from charm itself, pouring drinks, laughing lightly, touching Daniel's arm with practiced tenderness. Rosa moved among the tables, serving pastries and fruit, her eyes tracking everything Serena touched. Aiden sat under a shaded umbrella, wrapped in a light sweater despite the warm weather, his face tired as he watched the adults chatter around him. When Serena approached him with a small plate of sliced strawberries, Rosa's heart lurched. She saw Serena sprinkle something on them, a small dusting motion, subtle but unmistakable. Rosa felt adrenaline surge. She rushed forward and intercepted the plate before Aiden could touch it. "I'm sorry, Miss Serena, I think one of the strawberries has mold," Rosa said quickly, lifting the plate higher so Serena couldn't grab it back without making a scene. Serena's smile faltered for half a second, that same flicker of irritation Rosa knew too well. "Oh? Really? That's strange. I just sliced them," she said sweetly, but her eyes narrowed. Daniel looked over with mild concern. "Everything okay?" Serena instantly regained her composure. "Just a small mix-up," she said with a practiced laugh. "Rosa's being extra careful." But her gaze toward Rosa was venomous. Rosa excused herself, walking straight into the kitchen, dumping the strawberries, and whispering a prayer under her breath. This couldn't continue. Every day she saved Aiden, Serena became more desperate. And desperation breeds recklessness. Later that evening, Rosa gathered the courage she'd been building for weeks. She found Daniel alone in his study, reviewing documents under the warm desk lamp. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, hair slightly disheveled, stress weighing on his shoulders. "Sir," Rosa began softly, her hands trembling, "may I speak with you privately?" Daniel looked up with a kind but distracted smile. "Of course, Rosa. What's on your mind?" She shut the door behind her, her pulse hammering. "It's about Aiden," she said, her voice cracking. Daniel instantly straightened, concern flaring in his eyes. "Is he okay? Did something happen?" Rosa inhaled shakily. This was the moment, this was where everything could change, or she could lose her job and be thrown out by morning. "Sir. I believe," she paused, her throat tightening. "I believe someone is trying to harm him." Daniel froze. Confusion flickered, then disbelief. "What do you mean? Who?" Rosa swallowed hard. "Serena," she whispered. His expression turned cold instantly, anger, not at Serena, but at Rosa. He stood abruptly. "Rosa, stop." "Sir, please, just listen," she begged, tears gathering in her eyes. "I saw her, more than once, putting something in his food, in his drinks. I found an empty bottle in the trash. Aiden gets sick only after eating what she gives him. I'm not imagining this." Daniel's face hardened. "Serena has been nothing but good to my son. She takes care of him. That's what she wants you to see," Rosa cried. "She's hurting him behind your back. Please, sir, Aiden is in danger. I swear on my life." Daniel slammed his palm on the desk. "Enough. This is unacceptable. She loves him. You're accusing her of something horrible without proof. You're crossing a line." Rosa flinched at the sharpness in his voice. She tried again, desperate. "Sir, please, just watch her. Just once. You'll see it yourself." He pointed at the door. "Rosa, go. You're tired. Maybe stressed. You've always cared for Aiden, I know that, but this?" He shook his head. "We'll talk tomorrow." She left the study with tears streaming down her face, her heart breaking, not because Daniel didn't believe her, but because she knew Aiden had run out of time. That night, Serena found Rosa in the hallway. Her smile was thin, stretched, poisonous. "You really should mind your own business," she whispered, stepping close enough that Rosa could smell her expensive perfume masking something rotten underneath. "Daniel trusts me. Not you. And if you keep interfering," she leaned even closer, "I will make sure you disappear from this house." Rosa didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her small bed, clutching the thin blanket, trying to fight the rising fear. She had failed her first attempt. But she couldn't give up. The next morning, Aiden skipped breakfast and stayed in bed, complaining of dizziness. Serena told Daniel it was normal recovery. Daniel believed her, still wrapped in the illusion she'd built. Rosa watched from the doorway, helpless. But then, Aiden's school reached out. The teacher called to ask why Aiden had missed so many days and whether everything was okay at home. When Daniel mentioned Aiden's unexplained health issues, the teacher said something that changed everything, "But Mr. Hart. Aiden never showed signs of anxiety or stress at school. He's one of our healthiest, happiest students." Daniel felt something shift. A crack appeared in Serena's perfect story. That night, Daniel sat awake long after Serena went to bed. Rosa didn't know it yet, but her warning had finally planted a seed. A seed that would grow into suspicion. And suspicion, into truth. Daniel woke the next morning with a heaviness in his chest he hadn't felt in years, something between dread and guilt, a gnawing sensation that Rosa's trembling voice and raw desperation had left behind. Serena was already up, standing in front of the mirror brushing her golden hair, humming softly like a woman without a care in the world. "Morning, darling," she said, leaning in to kiss him. Her lips were warm, soft, loving, but Daniel felt something different now. A tiny ripple of doubt. Something didn't add up. Aiden's teacher's words echoed in his mind like a bell, "He's one of our healthiest, happiest students." If that was true, then why the sudden collapse? Why the constant dizziness? Why did it all begin only after Serena moved in completely? Daniel tried to shake the thought away, but it throbbed behind his ribs as he got ready for work. Meanwhile, Serena moved with new urgency, as if she sensed something in Daniel had shifted. She kept close to him, offering coffee, tying his tie, brushing lint off his jacket. She wore her kindness like armor. But Rosa noticed something else. Serena's eyes were sharper, her movements quicker, her smile stretched thin at the edges. Serena had realized Rosa's attempt to warn Daniel meant she had to accelerate her plan. Aiden had survived longer than she expected, and with the gala only 4 days away, an event Serena planned to use as a public platform to announce the wedding date, she couldn't risk Daniel delaying or questioning anything. So she changed tactics. That afternoon, when Daniel left for a meeting, Serena visited Aiden's room with a tray of recovery soup, insisting she made it herself from her grandmother's recipe. Aiden watched her warily from his bed, his small hands gripping the blanket. "I'm not hungry," he whispered weakly. "Oh sweetheart," Serena cooed, pushing the spoon toward him, "you must eat to get better. Here, just a little." But Aiden turned his face away. Frustration flickered in her perfect smile. She set the tray down and stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Daniel trusts me. And I can make him believe anything. So stop causing trouble." Aiden's eyes widened with fear just as the door cracked open. Serena snapped back into her gentle expression instantly as Rosa entered with fresh towels. Rosa gave Serena a polite nod, then looked at Aiden, who was visibly shaken. Senora Serena, Mr. Hart asked for you downstairs, Rosa said gently. Serena froze. She hadn't heard Daniel come home. For the first time, worry flashed on her face. He did, she asked. Rosa nodded calmly, though her heart raced. Serena smoothed her hair, straightened her dress, and left the room with a forced smile. As soon as Serena disappeared, Aiden whispered, Rosa, don't leave me alone with her. Rosa knelt beside him, holding his hand tightly. I won't, mi amor, she whispered. Then she lifted the bowl of soup, sniffed it, something smelled metallic beneath the herbs. Rosa's stomach churned. She dumped the entire bowl in the bathroom sink and washed it thoroughly. She would not let Serena get even one more chance. Downstairs, Serena entered the living room to find Daniel pacing, something he rarely did. You wanted to see me? She asked, masking her nerves with concern. Daniel turned, his expression unreadable. Aiden's school called, he said simply. Serena's breath caught, but she smiled. Oh? Did they ask about his assignments? I told them he's recovering. No, Daniel said slowly, his voice low. They said he's always been healthy. Energetic. No signs of anxiety. No fainting. Nothing. The room seemed to shrink around them. For the first time, Serena's confident mask slipped, just barely. Well, sometimes health changes suddenly, she said, her tone tightening. Especially with stress at home. Daniel's brows drew together. What stress? Serena hesitated half a second too long. Daniel noticed. Darling, with everything happening, the upcoming marriage, blending families, all those people looking at us, maybe it's overwhelming him, she said, reaching out for his hand. Daniel stared at her fingers as they touched him. Something felt wrong. Cold. Calculated. Maybe, he replied, but his tone wavered. Serena sensed it. She stepped closer, using her most powerful weapon, the illusion of love. Daniel, she whispered, pressing her hand to his cheek, I love you. And I love Aiden. I would never hurt him. Please, don't let other people plant doubts in your heart. The words stung, not because they were honest, but because they were perfectly rehearsed. Daniel felt torn, pulled between logic and emotion. Rosa's fear. The teacher's certainty. Serena's perfect performance. His heart and mind battled silently as Serena leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. But then, fate intervened. A crash exploded upstairs. Daniel's eyes widened. He pushed Serena aside gently but urgently. They sprinted up the stairs. Rosa was in the hallway, pounding on Aiden's door. Aiden. Aiden, open the door, she cried. Daniel shoved past her and twisted the doorknob, it was locked from the inside. Panic surged through him as he threw his shoulder into the door until it burst open. Aiden lay on the floor beside his bed, unconscious, his face ghostly pale, his breathing shallow and ragged. Serena froze in the doorway, every muscle in her body tightening. Daniel dropped to his knees, lifting his son's limp body in trembling arms. Call 911, he roared. Rosa dialed immediately. Goosebumps crawled up Daniel's arms as he noticed a small half-empty bottle lying near Aiden's pillow, the same kind of unlabeled bottle Rosa had shown him days earlier. His blood ran cold. Serena's excuses, her sweetness, her tears, everything began unraveling in his head. The first crack had formed earlier. Now the whole facade was breaking apart. Serena stepped forward shakily. Daniel, I don't know what happened, he spun around, his face carved with fury and terror. Don't touch him, he said sharply, pulling Aiden away from her. For the first time, something dark and undeniable flashed across Serena's face, fear. Real fear. Because Daniel finally saw the red flag. He just didn't know yet how deep the poison ran. The ambulance sirens had barely faded when Daniel found himself pacing the cold, sterile hospital hallway, clutching Aiden's backpack like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His mind raced, replaying every moment he had overlooked, every smile Serena had faked, every warning Rosa had tried to give him. The doctors rushed Aiden into emergency stabilization, and all Daniel could do was stand there helplessly as nurses pushed past him. Serena sat a few chairs away, her hands trembling, not in fear for Aiden, but in fear of losing control. She knew this collapse was different. Stronger. Faster. Too fast. She had increased the dosage that morning, sure that with Daniel distracted by meetings, she could slip something into the boy's food unnoticed. But Rosa had been watching. Always watching. And now Serena felt the world tightening around her like a noose. When the doctor finally emerged, his face grim, Daniel felt his insides twist. "Mr. Hart, your son's blood tests show signs of toxicity." Toxicity. The word hit Daniel like a bullet. He turned slowly toward Serena, whose eyes widened in an instant, her breathing faltering. "Toxicity," she repeated weakly, but her voice cracked, exposing a sliver of panic. The doctor continued, unaware of the storm gathering. "We're running more tests, but this isn't natural. Something foreign is in his system. Repeated exposure. A pattern." Daniel's vision blurred as he remembered Rosa's trembling confession, the bottle she had shown him, the strawberries she had intercepted, the cocoa she had dumped. "Repeated exposure," he whispered, his voice hollow. Serena stood quickly. "Doctor, surely you're mistaken," she said, stepping forward as if she could charm truth into lies. "Aiden is sensitive. Maybe he ate something contaminated." "Kids ingest things." "No," the doctor interrupted. "This is deliberate." A silence so sharp it felt like glass spread across the hallway. Serena paled. Daniel stared at her for a long, suffocating moment, every memory of her care, her kindness, her insistence on serving Aiden replaying like a horror montage. His jaw clenched. "Rosa," he whispered. He didn't even need to call her. Rosa stepped forward from the waiting room doorway, tears streaking her cheeks but her face steady, resolute. "Mr. Hart," she said softly, "I'm ready to tell you everything." Serena stiffened like a deer caught in headlights, her pulse pounding visibly in her throat. "Daniel, don't listen to her. She's been acting strange, she's obsessed with me, but Daniel held up a hand, silencing her for the first time. "Not another word," he said coldly. Serena froze. Rosa took a deep breath, her voice wobbling but strong. She told him everything, from the first time she saw Serena pour powder into Aiden's juice, to the vitamin bottles, to the cocoa she intercepted, to Aiden whispering he was scared of Serena, to the soup that had smelled metallic. She described the hidden anger in Serena's eyes, the sudden shifts in her behavior, the constant hovering around Aiden's food, the way Serena tried to isolate Rosa and get her fired. She even admitted to digging in the trash and finding the empty bottle Serena had thrown out. Every word dropped like a stone into Daniel's chest. With each detail, the illusion of the woman he loved cracked deeper. Serena's facade shattered completely. She lunged forward. "This is ridiculous. She's jealous, she wants you to fire me. Enough." Daniel thundered, his voice echoing through the hospital walls. Serena froze mid-sentence, her breathing ragged, eyes wide with fear and rage. "Daniel, I love you," she whispered desperately. "I love Aiden. I'm the one who's been caring for him while you bury yourself in work. Rosa is lying. She's always hated me. Think, Daniel, why would I ever hurt Aiden? I'm going to be his mother." Her voice cracked, but it was the wrong kind of break, one fueled by manipulation, not grief. Daniel stepped closer, his eyes dark, his voice trembling with fury. "Because if Aiden dies, my entire estate goes to you," he said quietly. The truth hung between them like smoke. Serena's face dropped its last mask. Her eyes went cold. Dead. A chilling silence followed before Serena spoke again, her voice low and venomous. You were supposed to marry me, she hissed. Aiden wasn't supposed to be a problem. Rosa gasped. Daniel's jaw tightened. Everything became clear now, the timing, the patterns, the sweet smiles, the increased dosage, the urgency to marry quickly. Serena had never loved him. She had loved his wealth. And Aiden was just an obstacle. But while Daniel processed the horrifying truth, Serena's survival instinct kicked in. She realized she was cornered, and cornered predators don't freeze. They strike. She spun on her heels suddenly, bolting down the hallway. Security! Daniel yelled, running after her. Hospital guards sprang into action. Serena shoved through a pair of nurses, knocking a tray of medical tools to the floor. She sprinted toward the stairwell, heels clacking wildly, hair flying behind her like a golden whip. Daniel chased her, but Serena was desperate, frantic, feral. She threw open the stairwell door, only to come face to face with two officers responding to the call. She skidded to a stop, her chest heaving, eyes wild. He's lying, she screamed. They're all lying. The officers grabbed her arms. She kicked, screamed, begged, cursed, every layer of charm gone, every polished smile evaporated. Daniel watched, chest burning, as the woman he almost married devolved into someone unrecognizable. Rosa stood behind him, silently crying, not out of pity for Serena, but out of relief that the nightmare was ending. As Serena was handcuffed and dragged away, she twisted her head toward Daniel and spat out her final, venom-filled threat, "Without me, you have nothing." But she was wrong. Daniel had something far more precious, Aiden. And as he turned back toward the hospital room where his son fought for his life, he vowed one thing with a fire that no poison could extinguish: Serena would never come near his boy again. Aiden lay in the ICU surrounded by softly beeping monitors and warm amber lights that tried, and failed, to soften the sterile reality of the room. Daniel sat at his bedside with fingers interlocked over his son's tiny, cold hand, whispering prayers he hadn't said since his own childhood. For the first time in years, the billionaire who could buy anything felt completely powerless, because the one thing he'd give his entire fortune for was lying unconscious, bruised by poison, and fighting to stay alive. Rosa stood quietly at the doorway, her hands clasped, watching Daniel with a mixture of sorrow and fierce protectiveness. The doctor stepped in, his expression tight but hopeful. "We flushed out most of the toxins. His vitals are stabilizing. The next few hours are critical, but he has a strong chance." Daniel exhaled shakily, tears flooding his eyes as he bowed his head over Aiden's arm. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking. Rosa turned away, wiping her cheeks. She had spent weeks carrying the burden alone. Now the truth was exposed, and though the battle wasn't over, the weight finally began to lift. Hours dragged by slowly, the clock ticking loud enough to echo through Daniel's ribs. Then, sometime past midnight, Aiden's fingers twitched. Daniel's head shot up. Rosa gasped. The boy's eyelids fluttered, heavy and slow, before opening just enough to reveal his soft brown eyes. "Dad," he whispered, his voice thin and weak. The sound shattered Daniel. He broke into a sob he didn't even try to hide as he leaned over and kissed his son's forehead. "I'm right here, buddy. I'm right here," he said, holding him like he might disappear again. Aiden's eyes drifted toward the doorway. "Rosa," he murmured. Rosa stepped inside, heart aching. "See, mi amor. I'm here." Aiden swallowed with difficulty. I didn't drink the soup." Rosa nodded with a trembling smile. "I know, sweetheart." Aiden looked at his father again, fear flickering across his face. "Dad, she kept saying she'd make you love her more if I wasn't there." Daniel's whole body tensed. she won't ever come near you again. I promise, he said, his voice fierce, almost shaking with the weight of his fury. Over the next days, as Aidan regained strength, the full investigation unfolded like an avalanche. Toxicology reports confirmed the presence of digitalis, a powerful plant-based poison, in Aidan's blood. Small doses over time, increasing recently. Police obtained a warrant and searched Serena's belongings. They found several empty bottles, tiny droppers, and a hidden stash of unlabeled medicine containers, all with traces of the toxin. When confronted with the evidence, Serena broke down in a frenzy of denial, then rage, then cold silence. But the most chilling discovery was what police found on her phone: internet searches like, how to poison someone without detection, slow-acting toxins for small bodies, and inheritance laws for stepchildren. Each search was a nail in her coffin. She was charged with attempted murder, attempted poisoning, child endangerment, and multiple felonies that would ensure she never saw freedom again. During the court hearings, Serena sat in her orange jumpsuit, glaring at Daniel and Rosa with a hatred as sharp as broken glass. Aidan refused to look at her. Daniel never spoke to her again, not one word. The judge denied every plea for bail. But what shocked everyone most was how Serena's mask slid completely off in court. She screamed at Daniel, "If you had married me sooner, none of this would have been necessary." That sentence echoed in the courtroom like thunder. Cameras flashed. Headlines exploded across the nation. Billionaire's fiancée charged in poisoning plot. Attempted murder for inheritance, a modern-day crime thriller. Daniel never cared about the headlines, he cared only about Aidan. As the trial proceeded, Daniel made radical changes. He upgraded every security system in the mansion, installed cameras in every hallway, and hired bodyguards specifically for Aidan. He also made Rosa the head of household staff and doubled her salary, but more importantly, he hugged her, truly hugged her, and said, "You saved my son's life. I will never forget that." Rosa cried into his shoulder, relief and gratitude pouring out of her in waves. Months later, when Aidan had fully recovered, Daniel held a small celebration in their garden. Nothing fancy, just a quiet evening with lights strung across the trees, soft music, and the people who truly mattered. Aidan held Rosa's hand as they walked across the lawn, the boy laughing again for the first time in a long while. Daniel watched them both with a heart full of emotion. At one point, Aidan looked up at his father and asked softly, "Dad, what's going to happen to Serena now?" Daniel knelt, meeting his son's eyes. "She made choices that hurt you. And now she has to face justice. But you? You're safe. That's all that matters." Aidan nodded, satisfied. As the sun dipped behind the mansion, casting golden light over the garden, Daniel realized something profound: his fortune didn't protect him. His status didn't protect him. His kindness didn't protect him. But love, the love he had for his son, and the loyalty of a woman like Rosa, that was his real wealth. And from that day on, Daniel vowed one thing with absolute clarity: no matter how beautiful someone appeared, no matter how sweet their smile, he would never again let anyone near his family without truly knowing who they were. Love made him trust Serena once. But truth had saved his son. And truth, at last, had set them all free. If you're still here, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because stories like this remind us that sometimes the monsters we fear aren't strangers in the dark, they're the people we trust the most. And if this story moved you, shocked you, or made you hold your breath even for a second, then do one thing for me before you go. Drop your city in the comments right now. Tell me where in the world you watched this story from. I love reading your comments and seeing our community grow from state to state, city to city. And if you want more emotional, twist-filled, heartbreaking stories like this, true loyalty, family love, justice, betrayal, everything, then don't leave without subscribing. Hit that button, turn on the bell, and become part of the family. Because trust me, the next story I'm dropping, you will not be ready for it. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay alert, and hug the ones you love tonight.